How's it going, YouTube? Public Safety Network here. So I decided to do a video about how to get into the security industry, kind of like an intro for new people that, maybe this is your first security job, or maybe you worked in another industry and you want to get into this one now. So we're going to kind of talk about what you need to know to kind of make that step in, and maybe some rookie mistakes to avoid when you first get started. So the licensing process for most states is different. So if you're from California, New York, Florida, wherever, the security guard licensing process is going to be very different. Some states have pretty strict standards and require quite a few hours of training before you can get your license. Other states, it's a very, very quick process. So I'm going to tell you about my state. I'm from Arizona. And here, there are two classes you can take, two security guard licenses you can obtain. There is a unarmed, which is an 8-hour course, and it covers things like citizens arrests, loss prevention, a bunch of different security topics, and it's an 8-hour class, I believe, I can't remember, I don't believe there's a test at the end, or if the test is mandatory, but there may be a test at the end regarding the subject matter. And then you have an armed class, and armed is obviously carry a firearm. It is a 16-hour course. The first part of it is going to be all legal. It's going to be things like use of force laws in your state, laws governing use of deadly force by a private person versus a law enforcement officer. It's going to cover, again, laws of arrests. So a little more in depth about when you can make a private person arrest in your state. And then it's also going to cover crimes that, if you were to make a private person arrest, what types of crimes you could do a citizen's arrest on. Because in a lot of states, at least in mine alone, it's felonies. And then it has to be misdemeanors that are a breach of peace and have to be committed in your presence. And so those are all things that are covered in that class. So like I said, so those are going to be the two classes you're going to take. The way licensing works in my state is, if you have an unarmed license, you can use that one license and you can work for as many companies as you want to. So if you want to go work for ABC company and then XYZ company, you can work both of those on the same license. However, armed guard cards are different in the fact that you have to have a different card for each company that you work for. So if I go work for ABC security company, I have a license. My armed license looks exactly like my unarmed license, except it says armed across it, and in the bottom left corner it's going to give the name of the company that I work for along with that company's licensing number. Now, say I work for ABC, but I want to go work for XYZ Security. What I do is, there's a form that DPS has. If you don't know what DPS stands for the Department of Public Safety. That is filled out by the new company. It's filled out, signed by either usually for me it's been the owner, or it's an authorizing agent. And then they fill it out, stamp it, say yes, they work for me. You take it down to DPS, you hand them $5, and they issue you a new card to work for that company. So, to get an armed license, you have to have an armed license. You can't just get an armed license, because when you take the armed course, you also take the unarmed course, and they'll issue you both licenses at the same time. Now, here, security licenses are good for 2 years. An unarmed, it's every 2 years. You just have to retake the same 8-hour course. With an armed license, you have to retake the 16-hour course every 2 years, and then every off year, you have to take an 8-hour refresher. And what that means is, so if I get my license in 2018, in 2019 I have to take a refresher course in order to keep my license active. If I do not do that refresher course, then they will actually expire my license, and I will have to go through the whole process all over again. Classes, unarmed classes, I've seen them as cheap as $25, and then you have to pay a $72 fee to DPS. $50 is for the license and $22 for the fingerprinting. And most good guard card classes will actually fingerprint you during the class. And then an armed license will be, I've seen them, usually the average I've seen for the actual course is going to be about $75, and then it'll be $122 to DPS for, again, the licensing and the fingerprinting. And then sometimes refreshers, I've seen them run about $50 per course. Now, so that's just armed and unarmed. So you decided, okay, I've got my unarmed and armed license. What about other weapons like batons, OC spray, handcuffing? In the state of Arizona, you do not have to have an actual license to be able to carry a baton, handcuffs, OC spray. You just need documented training. So your company has documented training that he's been trained on handcuffing, baton, OC spray, and then, that's kind of about it. Downside to that, obviously, is the companies can just write down that they trained you, or it could be like, this is how you use it type thing, and then you're trained. And so I don't necessarily agree with that system. The only other less lethal option that you have to have an actual certification for is tasers. So you can be certified in tasers. There's a few schools around where I live that actually do run that course. And you will be certified usually, I'm certified in the X26P model, which means that I can carry an X26P. You have to get certified for different types of tasers, so if you carry an X26P, you can't just carry an X2. That's kind of how that works, but you actually have to have a certification that's good for a year and have to renew that certification every single year. Now, there are trainers that will do this, and they are certified by what is formerly known as Taser International and is now known as Axon. But they are the ones who certify instructors for tasers. And so make sure that when you go to a taser training course that your instructor is certified by Axon. If they're not, I'd probably go find someone that is. Okay, so say you've got all of your license, you decided to either work armed or unarmed. What do I do now? And the thing is, you're going to try to go find a company to work for. Now, in my state, you only need a guard license if you are working for a contract company. If you don't know what a contract company is a security company that provides third-party services to other companies versus proprietary, which means that I work for the same company that hires me to do security. And so, now your job is to go out and you got to go find a company. Well, there's a few different places. You can look on Indeed, you can look on Craigslist, at Facebook. I know there's plenty of security companies where I live that advertise their service, that they advertise jobs on Facebook, and you kind of like look at them like, all right, and you can send your resume out. Some make you fill out applications. A lot of the more mom and pop shops that may only have 20, 30 personnel may just take resumes, and then you kind of go through the process. Every security company does their own process. They prefer that, a lot of them, especially the mom and pop ones, prefer that you have guard licensing before they hire you, because again, it's more of a cost thing for them. And so, okay, you've got interviews with companies now. What do I look for? And the things you're going to look for is, obviously you're going to look for pay. Most people have a pay range that they'd like to be, for depending on the work they're doing. Also based on experience. And I'm going to tell you this, guys, if this is your first security job, especially when you're starting out young, I got my first security job at 19 years old, be expected to be paid pretty low, especially close to minimum wage. You really, and I don't mean to sound rude about this, is you don't really have a whole lot of experience or a whole lot to offer the company, is the fact that you really don't know anything. Just because you took that 8 or 16-hour course doesn't mean you really know a whole lot about working security. And so don't be expected to be paid a higher wage. A lot of these better paid jobs, like the $15 or $20 an hour jobs, are usually going to go to guys who have a lot of years of experience. You're going to have guys, or in all honesty, and I'm being honest about this, some of those contracts, they're looking for former law enforcement or former military guys, and that's just kind of how the security game works. So just be prepared for that you're probably not going to have very good pay to start out, and you need to be the judge of, is the pay worth what they're asking me to do? Because in all honesty, there are some companies that are really cheap and that ask you to do some pretty dangerous or high-risk stuff for, a minimum wage or barely above minimum wage. And I've seen companies like that, and you should be aware that there are companies out there that are going to do that. So aside from the pay, look, what type of security are you looking to do? Are you looking to do armored transport like I did? Are you looking to do apartment complexes? Are you looking for more of like a static post where you kind of just want to sit down and watch cameras all day? Are you looking for loss prevention? I mean, these are all things to consider when you're looking at security companies, because not every security company does all of that. Some companies specialize in, say, housing, or some specialize in construction, or bodyguard services. I mean, a lot of companies, maybe specialize in one thing, although they may have a general, like, we do this, 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 and this. So that's also something to consider. And then also kind of look at the kind of culture and the atmosphere of the people that work there versus, the management. Are the employees, pretty close with the management? I mean, I've worked at companies where I work directly with the owner and we were on a first name basis, and then there's other ones where it's more of a formal structure where you call, the owner or the management Mr., Mrs., Miss, whatever. So that's also kind of look at what kind of culture are you looking to go to. Are you looking to go for more of like a militaristic structure where everyone's got like their rank or their name or whatever, and this is kind of how it is? Or you're looking for more of a kind of a laid back, more like family type environment, which honestly I prefer the family types, and honestly you tend to get those at the mom and pop shops more than you get at the big companies like Securitas, Allied Universal, G4S. You tend to get a little more intimacy with the people you work with. And so again, these are all things you need to consider going in. Guys, I'm gonna give you a little piece of advice about going in. When you get to your first assignment or you get to your first job, if you realize, because there's a few companies out there that specialize especially in departments, if you realize that this job is not for you, like you don't like the work, or maybe you're scared, there's plenty of guys that go out and they get armed, and then they get put in these really more dangerous situations, and they're scared. There's nothing wrong with being scared, guys. If you're not at least a little scared, that can be dangerous, and you can actually end up getting yourself or someone else hurt. But if you're too scared to the point where for a fact that you can't do the job, then quit. There's no shame in quitting if you can't do it. There's some dicks in the industry that are going to make fun of you, but I mean, most people are going to understand if you're just up and honest, be like, hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or I realized that maybe this isn't for me. And I don't know any decent security person that's going to make fun of you for that. So just be honest with yourself. Also, guys, if another piece of advice, if you can't stay up late at night and you suck at working night shift, I would kind of strongly consider, unless for a fact you're going to get day shift or swing shift, I would consider maybe finding another line of work. Most new security guards or officers or whatever are going to get night shifts, and it isn't until you're probably a few years in that you're going to probably get the offer for day shift or swing shift. I work nights now, not because I have to, but because I choose to. I like working nights, but there's a lot of people that don't, and if you're new to the industry, there's a pretty strong possibility that you are going to get night shift. So that is also something to take into consideration when getting into this line of work. But if you guys really liked this video, go and subscribe, like it, comments. I'll try to answer comments in the question, but if I get a topic recurring about getting into the security industry or things like that, we'll go ahead and probably make a second parts of this. But like I said, if you're out there, guys, stay safe, and God bless. Have a good night.